Historic Kezar Stadium, the site of Wednesday's training camp practice. We're bringing it to you right here on 49ers Live. We appreciate you joining us as always. I'm Joe Finn, joined by Taylor Price. From 1946 to 1970, this was the home of the 49ers. You can feel the history here. It's fun to be back.
It's great to be back in San Francisco, Joe. The fans are out, the jerseys, all the gear. It's exciting times to watch your team out at Kezar Stadium reuniting with San Francisco. It's a great thing.
It's always special to be back here in the city, but it's also special to have fans out here. And they're expecting about 8,000 faithful on hand today. Crowd still filing in. Stands over on that side, basically full at this point. You got special teams out here warming up. We're going to bring the entire individual period here for you right here on 49ers Live, so you don't want to go anywhere. The team buses have arrived. Players will be filing out shortly for warm-ups. And Taylor, especially when you have the way camp was set up this year, this is the only practice that's open to fans this year, which makes today all the more special.
That's right, Joe. It's a special environment. The fans get to watch us on 49ers Live. They get to read about the team on our articles and things like that. But to be out here and get a chance to watch them up close, if you're a young guy on this football team, this is the first opportunity you have to make an impression on a young person. This is the first time they're getting to watch you play in the National Football League, and so that's a motivating factor. And these players, they're competing. They want something to mix up training camp. It gets a little monotonous at times. Now you have the fans in here cheering after you make a catch, cheering after you make a tackle, and that pushes these players through the paces at practice.
Absolutely. I mean, we're in the heart of the dog days of training camp. Obviously, people looking forward to that game in practice against the Houston Texans, but right now, when they walk out that tunnel at the far end of the field and they have the fans cheering for them, you hear the music, the juices will get going a little bit. And I know right now, as you can see, with special teams, they're wearing pads and shorts. So basically, it's going to be half of the full pads, which means today will still be plenty competitive.
Very competitive indeed, and these players want to put on a show for the fans that came out. You don't want to come out here and have a bad day of work. They're still pushing to compete and get up the roster spots to play against the Houston Texans. Playing time is very coveted. Chip Kelly is going to talk to the media before practice. He's going to shed some light on those position battles and the playing time that's being discussed. But it's a great opportunity. The sun's out, the weather's nice, the breeze is going. It's a great day to be back in San Francisco, Joe.
Absolutely. It's a perfect day, incredibly warm. As you can see, everyone enjoying their Wednesday. Best way to celebrate a hump day, live football practice. We're bringing it here to you on 49ers Live. Taylor, you don't want to put bad practice or bad film on tape for the coaches. You don't want to put bad tape in front of all the fans either. And so I'm excited to see what happens here today. Obviously, in just a couple of minutes, hopefully these guys are going to be coming out here. We'll have guests on. A couple of the beat writers will be joining us. But we'll be here about the next 30 to 45 minutes, so don't go anywhere, Taylor. And when we're looking at storylines, we're looking forward to that first game as we're in the second week of full training camp practice. What have you noticed so far as these competitions continue to unfold?
The coaches, they're having a tough time evaluating the players because they're making it so hard on them. It's one thing if it's an easy choice. One player is really distinguishing himself, and this is our quarterback, this is our inside linebacker. But these position battles are hotly contested, and every single day someone else is making a play, standing out on film. And you've heard Jim O'Neill, Curtis Modkins, and head coach Chip Kelly talk about it. We want someone to stand out on tape and seize the job. And it's hard for the coaches to make that choice when so many players are making great plays early in practice. So these days, they start to build up. You want to put good film out there, build on it, and make your case in these preseason games because, as they say, the eye in the sky doesn't lie. When you put on film all 22, you're going to see who the best players are, and so you want to continue to build and make it harder on the coaches.
It's easy to forget how competitive these rosters are around the NFL. Yes, there are 32 teams with 53 guys on each, but right now, throughout the NFL, 90 players on each roster, so much talent. Look at how crowded each position room is right now. A couple of very notable ones, cornerback. A lot of guys, all these guys that Trent Baalke drafted, there's going to be some tough decisions when it comes down to it. He's probably not going to keep 10 cornerbacks. And so who's going to stand out? Every rep is so vital, and you've really seen that sense of urgency from every guy, every practice. When they get reps, they're trying to make the most of them because, like you said, you can't afford bad plays.
You mentioned the cornerbacks. They're so deep. You move Marcus Cromartie and Kenneth Acker to safety with the second and third teams, and that just pushes the whole defensive backfield room. You want to get on the field any way you can, and so these young cornerbacks are pushing for playing time. Keith Reese or Dante Johnson, they don't want to give it up to a rookie. They want to continue to ascend as well on this team. So a lot of young talent on this roster, and it's fun to watch them compete every day. You're looking at those wide receiver cornerback battles today in practice. If you're out here at Kezar, you want to see which young corner, which young wide receiver is really making a name for themselves because there's a lot of intrigue, a lot of mystery. Who are these draft picks? Who's the one that's going to be the guy for us on Sundays? And this is a great step for the fans to come out here and champion a young player, someone that they're going to be rooting for years to come.
And obviously all eyes will be on the quarterbacks, as has been since training camp opened about a week and a half ago. Taylor, so far, Colin Kaepernick, Blaine Gabbert, they've both had their days, but overall been fairly successful.
I can't wait to see it out here with the instant approval of the fans, the oohs and the ahs. You know, you don't really get those sounds at the practices. We're not cheering for the players when they make a good throw. You know, you might do an inner monologue golf clap, but out here, the fans are going to let you know exactly what's going on. And if a guy makes a great throw down the field, you're going to hear from this crowd, and that's going to be exciting. And that's instant affirmation for the players that, hey, fans are feeling what I'm doing out there, and I'm going to make a nice throw in the next period.
What do you think guys are feeling? You know, I think for a lot of them, especially the young guys, they don't necessarily know the background of this team. They don't know what this field, this stadium means to this organization. And I think, you know, I talked about it last night on the live show. For me as well, coming here, this is my second season. Really to get to be here and feel, you know, this is where the $1 million backfield, Joe Perry, Y.A. Tittle, Hugh McElhaney, all those guys, and this is the foundation of this franchise all started right here.
Joe, if you're a football guy through and through, you love nostalgia. This takes you back to high school, Friday Night Lights, walking out across the track and field turf to get onto the field and playing surface. And if you saw the tunnel back there, it's very Dungeness, it's very Indiana Jones-like. You're walking on sand, dirt. You're going through a winding maze to get out here on the field
to start rolling behind you.
Exactly, and so there's going to be a sense of, okay, this is different. And like we talked about, it camp gets monotonous at times. You're going against the same guys. You need something to spice it up a little bit, and this is a great venue for that. And I think some of the young players are going to be excited. The alumni will be here watching and supporting them and talking to them. We've had Charles Haley out at practice, and so I expect plenty of more former players to be out here watching this and partaking. And that's a great thing when you have the history of the 49ers right in front of you, bonding together. And like I said, football players through and through, you're going to enjoy an atmosphere like this.
If you're watching on Facebook Live or on Twitter, 49ers Live or 49ers.com or the team's mobile app, send in your questions. I got my phone right here, taking your questions throughout the entire show. We want to hear from you. If you can't be here, we want to make you a part of it. We're going to step out real quick and check it out. You guys can get a feel for who's here, what's happening as some of the offensive linemen have stepped out. They're on the far side of the field getting loose. Got Bradley Pinion right here in front of you with Kyle Nelson. They're getting loose, always special teams. We know all about this special teams group. That's led by Phil Dawson. They like to be out here bright and early.
Phil Dawson is a meticulous kicker. He's checking the weather app this morning. He's getting out here early with his cup of coffee. And you can see him, the focus is there. New number 4 this year. He asked Andy Lee for permission to wear his old uniform number, and 4 looks good on him. That was the number he wore at Cleveland for so many years. And get the competition on with John Lunsford, the undrafted rookie kicker. So it's fun to watch these guys work. You know, everyone looks at special teams in a different way, but this is the key to the game, winning those extra close games with field goals and best plays on special teams. So that's why these guys come out here early, because they take their job very seriously.
This stadium now hosts high school sports. It's good to see red and gold back in the stands. You can feel the energy. We obviously got the speakers going, the MC on the mic, Michael Kennedy doing a great job, as he always does. You hear him on 49ers game days at Levi Stadium. Taylor, have you been here before?
Yeah, it's been a couple years, but it's great to see the Bob St. Clair goalposts in tribute of him. And, rest in peace, Bob St. Clair. This was a place where he starred for so many years, a San Francisco icon, played at USF, played for the 49ers. Was the mayor of Daly City, I believe, and had a great career for the 49ers. So it's cool to be out here and watch the 49ers come back to Bob St. Clair, especially a year after his passing. It's a cool thing. Got
more players filing out as you can zoom across the field. It's getting going here. Live practice from Kezar Stadium. 49ers training camp presented by SAP. This is 49ers Live, and we appreciate you joining us, as you always do. We're looking for some questions, so anyone who's got questions out there on Facebook Live, send them our way. Leo wants to know why Kezar, what is Kezar? Try and make sure everybody appreciates the history. This is the original home of the San Francisco 49ers from 1946. We talk about the 70th anniversary of this team, faithful since 46. Well, those original faithful, some of them who still have season tickets today at Levi's Stadium, and some of them who are on hand here today. This is where it all happened. This is where it began, Taylor.
Yeah, that's right, Joe. It's a matter of going on Google or Wikipedia. Come on, if you're a Niner faithful, you got to know about Kezar Stadium. This is woven in our DNA. It's the 70th anniversary of 49ers football. There's going to be so many great things connecting the fans to the team history, and we have a proud history. Every single decade, there's been so many great players, Hall of Fame contributors, and so Kezar Stadium is where many of the ground was laid. I mean, this is the groundwork, the places where so many great players established themselves and set the stage so the 49ers could be successful in the 80s, in the 90s, and in current day. So this is a great day and a great experience, and this is definitely an important part of our history.
Keith Reese right here stretching at the goal line in front of us. He's had a good camp so far, Taylor. And again, we talked about the competitive cornerbacks group a little bit prior to this guy's coming out. But Reeser himself, I mean, he's a guy who had injuries his first year, didn't necessarily get the opportunity he probably wanted last year, but he's made plays and flashed almost every practice of camp so far.
You want to talk about stacking days and building on one day to the next. Look no further than number 27. Started out as a guy who was recovering from an ACL injury, but ran a 4.3 in college, and that speed, it doesn't go anywhere. You can't teach 4.3 speed, as Trent Baalke has always talked about, and we're seeing that speed on the field. The way he breaks on the football is unlike any other cornerback we have on the roster. So he's in the mix to play as a nickel cornerback. You might slide Jimmy Ward in on the slot and put 27 on the perimeter, or you might go with Keith Reeser on the slot and mix him in there as well. Keith Reeser right now making it hard to keep him off the field.
If you're just tuning in, this is 49ers live from the historic Kezar Stadium, the original home of the San Francisco 49ers, bringing you live practice through the entire individual period. We're going to have some guests swing by and join the show, but I'm Joe Fan. He's Taylor Price. Obviously, getting mixed up. I'm with you too much, man. It's camp
okay.
days are long.
It's okay,
I'm
man.
forgetting my own name.
I'm Joe Fan. You're Taylor Price. It's all good.
Yeah, we can switch it up. We're not on camera. We can make it up as we go.
Exactly.
You got Phil Dawson here kicking in front of us, man. Talk about a guy who's money. This guy should get to 300 makes or 400 makes. Apologize. In his career, climbing up. He's in the top 10 now all time. A legend, if you will, in the kicking game.
And we're biased, but you want to talk about a Hall of Fame career, Phil Dawson is the epitome of professionalism and class as a kicker, and it's fun to watch him compete and watch him take his job seriously. He spent the offseason training back home in Austin. He comes out here for the first day of minicamp. He makes the first kick and says to Darius Swin, our special teams coordinator, I think we're good here. And Swin wanted to have him go through the paces and kick so many different spots on the field and warm up and go through it. And Phil Dawson has that great dry wit. I could see him being a character on The Office. He has that sense of humor where he fits in nicely and takes his job very seriously. He hits his kicks and he means well. He wants to make every time he's on the field.
Talk about a guy who just shows up to work, briefcase in hand, ready to get after it. And this is a guy who went through a lot of hard seasons in Cleveland, and I asked him about that. Was that difficult? But he said, you know what? I got one of 32 jobs in the entire world. I'm not in a place where I can be picky. I'm just thankful to be employed.
It's fun to watch Phil work, and the other good thing about him is it's him and Bradley Pinion. They're getting back together for another season. Bradley Pinion was a rookie punter out of Clemson, picked in the 5th round. A lot of high expectations on him, and this is a nice rhythm that they have where Kyle Nelson is the snapper, Bradley Pinion's the holder. These three are working well together, and they're getting back in the mix, and that's a good thing.
We got your guy QP out there. He likes to dance. He feels the music.
He's a crowd pleaser. Hey, you want to talk about having fun at practice? You gotta have Quentin Patton and Bruce Ellington doing their handshakes, doing their dabs, doing all their latest dance moves for the fans. That's gonna be a treat for the fans today.
Taylor, Todd wants to know how Anthony Davis has grasped Chip Kelly's new scheme. I think it started with getting in shape and ready to go. Obviously, he came in tremendous shape just in terms of his workouts, but getting in football shape is a different story. I think he's got those days behind him, and it seems like he's coming along pretty well and now getting some reps with the second team at right tackle.
And, Joe, if you remember, Anthony Davis, when he was at his best, was not only getting it done at the line of scrimmage, but he was getting down the field 10, 15 yards and finishing his blocks. And that's the trademark of an Anthony Davis on the offensive line. He doesn't just get it done in the trenches. He wants to finish the play down the field and spring his wide receivers, his running backs, for all the yards that they can pick up. So far in camp, I'm seeing 76 do the same things that made him a Pro Bowl caliber type player in this offense, where not only is he making his play at the line of scrimmage, he's getting down to the second level and trying to spring Carlos Hyde and the running backs loose.
Tim wants to know if they look like they have the eye of the tiger. And Tim, yes, they do. It's like Survivor is on the field playing Eye of the Tiger in person. I mean, I'm just looking. I can't see any eyeballs.
Hopefully we get some
It's too
80s.
bright. I'm looking in the sun, but I would imagine everyone is locked in right now.
I don't know if the DJ is taking requests just yet, but I have a feeling if we're going off what we played at practice, it's more contemporary, modern music, but we'll see.
We saw Quentin Patton dancing, and that kind of leads us into Dustin's question. He wants to know who wide receiver number 2 is behind Torrey Smith, and Quentin Patton's a guy who's definitely going to be a candidate for that job.
You watch 11 work out at practice, and it's just a different feel for him. And one thing I've noticed is he doesn't have Anquan Bolden or Michael Crabtree or Stevie Johnson or any of these players ahead of him keeping his reps down. He has a different sense of urgency right now. He's approaching a contract year. and you watch him compete. He's attacking the football every time it's thrown at him. He's got the scraggly beard right now. You know, he's just in veteran camp mode, and I love it to watch Quinton Patton compete like that for this team.
You've been a part of this organization for a while now, Taylor, and you've seen all these young guys. Eventually, that switch goes off where they go from young guy to veteran. You can hear it get going a little bit. But it looks like Quinton Patton has switched that flip where he knows, okay, this is my, like you said, those guys ahead of me are not here anymore. This is my prime opportunity that I've got to be focused, locked in, and take advantage of.
Joe, that's a great point. I mean, it really comes down to how much do you love the game, and once that switch goes on, there's a couple of times where you're young, you're learning, you kind of have the excuse of I'm a draft pick, I'm trying to earn my way into the league. And then eventually it's your time to go. And I think Quinton Patton and Bruce Ellington, we're watching every day in practice, they have that look about them that it's go time. It's time to produce, it's time to get on the field. There's no veteran ahead of them holding them down in practice reps, and they're getting after it every day.
Francisco's putting us on the spot. He wants to know who we think a surprise starter could be in 2016.
Wow, Francisco, I got to think about that one. Surprise starter. You know, I think a surprise, and I might cheat on this one, I'm going to say Jimmy Ward at cornerback, right cornerback, because that was a surprise to us all along. When we started watching him in OTAs and minicamp play at cornerback, we didn't think Jimmy Ward was a cornerback. I mean, that's because he's been playing safety and slot corner for all these years, but Jimmy Ward is one of the most athletic cornerbacks we have. He hits, he's a physical player. He's not just all about pass breakups. He wants to stick his nose in there and make some tackles. So if you asked me if Jimmy Ward's a starting cornerback in this league, I wouldn't have known that because I never saw him play that position before. And I would say he would be a surprise player at that starting role.
I'm going to bend the rules a little bit, Francisco. And I don't know, you didn't put week one in the question, so I'm not going to assume you're talking just week one. But a lot of times in this league, as stretches is getting going with the entire team, you see the quarterbacks up front. It's a war of attrition. And a lot of times you need that depth. And a guy I think as a rookie that could be a contributor in his first season is Ronald Blair. This is a guy, when you watch him, he passes the eye test as an athlete. He put up tons of production at Appalachian State. And again, I've been banging his drum throughout camp. What position is he going to be? How are they going to deploy him? I don't know. But what I do know is I think this guy can be a disruptive force in this league. You saw it yesterday. He hit a big-time PBU, or a tackle for loss, I should say, on a running play during a team drill. I think Ronald Blair could be my guy.
He went to the other ASU, so anyone who went to an ASU school, we're gonna give him the pass on that. Joe, I'll give you $1 if you can tell me who's the musician on this song.
Heath wants to know about Bruce Miller.
Crickets. He doesn't know.
I missed it.
I said I'll give you $1 if you can tell me who's what song's playing right now.
Oh, my rap game is not strong.
It's don't worry about it. What's the next question?
Well, now you gotta be thinking about it.
We'll come back to it. I'll quiz you offline.
Gonna be exposed here, my lack of hip hop knowledge. Heath wants to know how Bruce Miller is doing and how he's adjusting a tight end. Bruce is a guy who's gotten a lot. We always knew how much of an athlete he was just from the ability to go from defensive lineman in college to one of the top fullbacks in the game. But now it looks like he's making a seamless transition to tight end. Chip Kelly last week praised his route running and his natural hands.
Bruce Miller played defensive end in college. He was the Conference USA Defensive Player of the Year. Let us forget. So this guy's a football player through and through, and I think what impresses me most as he's making this transition is every day after practice, who's getting that work with the jugs machine? It's the tight ends, and it's 49. He's right there with them, working on his hands, and that's dedication to the craft and the job that you have.
Kenny wants to know how dominant the D-line will be this year, and I'm assuming when he says how dominant it will be, he's talking about Eric Armstead, DeForest Buckner, back-to-back first-round picks. And I think it's probably a little bit much to expect those guys to be dominant their first year playing together in the NFL, but I think it's fair to assume that the potential of these guys is pretty substantial when you compare them to defensive linemen around the league.
You know, there's two ways you can judge defensive line. It's sack totals, but for me, I'm really looking at the run yardage. You want to stop the run on first and second down and then get exotic and creative with your third down pressure schemes and all that. So talking to guys like Quinton Dial over the offseason, he was unhappy with how the rush defense was last year. And he talked about there's a standard with Justin Smith and those guys over the 2000s, the late 2000s. That rush defense was everything with this team, and that's really how you build your success as a defense. And so if you want to judge this defense, yes, sacks are a big key. But if we're stopping the run and we're keeping opponents to a low rushing average, I think that really sets the table for Jim O'Neill's defense to be successful this year.
Especially, though, when we're talking about a 3-4 defense with the middle linebacker the caliber of Navarro Bowman standing behind that defensive line, you've got to be able to eat up blocks and let Navarro Bowman roam free because, even if Mike Purcell, Eric Armstead, DeVorest Buckner aren't stopping the run, if they're eating blocks and letting Navarro Bowman fill gaps, it's going to be a successful season for the 49ers defense.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And rush defense is the big key to this defense, and that's been the standard for the 49ers in recent years. When they're in the playoffs, it's because they're stopping the run, and I think that's definitely a pillar that we want to build on. Hey, Joe, I have a question for you out here while we're watching Stretch. Did you watch Hard Knocks last night?
Say that again?
Did you watch Hard Knocks last night?
I didn't watch Hard Knocks. Don't spoil it, man. It's on the DVR.
There was a great scene where the Rams were working on yoga, and this reminds me of that. There are a lot of football players this offseason have been working yoga into their routine. Torrey Smith, Eric Reed, Navarro Bowman and company. It's a pretty cool thing that these athletes are finding new ways to be more flexible and treat their bodies right as they get ready for the season.
Speaking of TV last night, I spent pretty much my entire night, I watched a 15-inning Mariners game, which kept me up past my bedtime. But the Olympics. Can we talk about how it's 2016 and we can't get any West Coast love for live Olympics? I mean, we had a big night last night for the USA. Shout out to the greatest of all time, Michael Phelps, 21 gold medals. The U.S. gymnastics team totally ran away with the team all-around competition. I just want to know, we all know what happened. We saw it on Twitter 4 hours ago. Like, we don't need the dramatic tease from Bob Costas. Let's see it,
Yeah, shout out.
String us out till midnight.
Hey, I'll give a shout out to Matthew Asher, who works with us on the digital team. He put an article together about 49er players and their ties to the Olympics. Lest we forget, Michael Carter, defensive lineman, won a medal in the Olympics as shot put. His daughter was also in the Olympics this year. So if you're looking for a Niner to root for, Michelle Carter is in the shot put women's Olympics. So track and field, get ready for some Niner gold medal action.
How's that for a segue? Enough of our tangents on the Olympics, although last night was pretty awesome, if I do say so myself. Michael Phelps, dude's ridiculous.
There's a lot of people here, Joe.
There are a lot of people here. It keeps filing in, too. Pretty consistent flow of traffic in these gates here at Kezar Stadium, which is where we are, the historic Kezar Stadium on 49ers Live, bringing you live training camp practice. I'm Joe Fan with, as always, my co-host Taylor Price. Going back to your questions, if you're watching on Facebook, be sure to send them in. Got the phone handy so we can check them out. Timmy wants to know what number Ray Armstrong is. That'll be 54. And where's our other question about? Alex wants to know who will be positioned next to Navarro Bowman, an inside linebacker. Taylor, you posted the depth chart last night. It came out. There were two positions that had multiple starters. One was the quarterback, and one was inside linebacker. We'll get to the quarterbacks, but starting at inside linebacker, obviously we know Navarro Bowman will be there, but Michael Wilhoit, Gerald Hodges, and Ray Armstrong, that three-headed competition still going on. Yeah,
it is, and it's tough. It's really tough at this point to put a pecking order out there because even Jim O'Neill said it, the rush defense is the hardest thing to evaluate at this point at camp. You're not tackling to the ground. You're not really seeing who is the best tackler. You're seeing who's in position, who's not blowing assignments, who can cover in space, and all those things are great. But to be an inside linebacker, you got to make tackles. You got to be putting running backs down and tight ends down when they get the ball. So I think we'll get a better sense as we get into these preseason games. But all three have been impressive. They've all had their moments. And I wouldn't sleep on Michael Wilhoit. There's a sense of rejuvenation with him. And I've seen a lot of plays from 57 in recent days. He's got the most experience starting of the three. Ray Armstrong has tons of athleticism, and Gerald Hodges is just a through-and-through football player. He went to Penn State, so he's linebacker U all the way. So good three options to have.
Absolutely. It's going to be a pick your flavor because they're all very different in terms of, you got Michael Wilhoit, a great run stopper. You've got Gerald Hodges, probably a little bit faster, maybe a little bit better of an athlete, and Ray Armstrong, kind of a hybrid of the two. A lot of talk about rookies here with our Facebook questions. Ben wants to know how rookie Rashard Robinson's looking out of LSU.
So far, I'd have to say he's been one of the most impressive rookies, and that's really because you didn't know too much about him. He didn't play football last season, but this guy, I can't help but make a comparison to Tyrann Mathieu. Ran into some trouble at LSU, got around the right people, and really dedicated himself to the game of football. And look at Tyrann Mathieu now, got a second contract with the Arizona Cardinals. Now, that's a lofty comparison to make when a guy hasn't even played in the league, and they do play different positions. But I see a pedigree there where this guy is a football player, and you listen to Jim O'Neill talk about him. He's a football junkie. He's asking questions in the meetings. He's impressive. And you look at some of the wide receivers, who do they like to go against? Who's pushing them? It's number 3, Rashard Robinson. So far, so good for him.
This is Rick Ross right here.
This is Rick Ross.
I got that one. Who was the first one?
ASAP Ferg.
Oh yeah, that was going to be my guess. It's on the tip of my tongue.
It's okay.
I just couldn't come up with the name.
We got to get this practice playlist up there on Spotify for the fans. I'll work on that.
Talking Rashard Robinson, though, you want to talk about a guy who doesn't take a rep off. One of the most competitive players we see at practice day in and day out. Not afraid to mix it up with the likes of Torrey Smith and other veterans on the team. He's gotten shout-outs from a bunch of guys, not only the coaches, but the players themselves. And I think it says a lot about the kind of athlete and the kind of player you are, the kind of pedigree you have, when you can spend an entire year not playing football, and Trent Baalke has enough stock, enough value in you to take you in the 4th round. That's pretty incredible.
You know, we talked about speed, and you can't really teach that. Yes, you can get faster, but your natural 4.3 speed, you can't really teach that. Rashard Robinson, you can't teach those go-go gadget arms. I mean, you look at what Jim O'Neill likes to do on defense. Very press man heavy, very aggressive at the line of scrimmage. And Rashard Robinson at 6'1", 185 pounds, he looks the part as a press man corner. Looks like Nnamdi Asomugha in a way, where those long arms get on you when you're trying to get to the top of your route. And yes, he needs to work on not holding and being so heavy with the hands past the 5-yard marker. But Rashard Robinson fits the bill of a press man corner, and that's something that I think this defense wants to do more of.
This is 49ers Live at the historic Kezar Stadium. I'm Joe Finn, joined by Taylor Price. We appreciate you joining us as always. We got warm-ups going right now. We're going to have you live throughout the entire individual period, taking you from position group to position group, and as always, answering your questions throughout the show. Taylor, continue on that theme of rookies. The other first-round pick, Joshua Garnett. We got a question. Do you think it's possible for him to be a starter week 1?
As long as the smacking and clacking keeps going on, and yeah. So, hey, we got people working hard today at practice. Joshua Garnett, I think he's the type of person that you want to see him in the game as well, because you watch that Stanford UW film. Hate to bring it up, Joe, but he was just throwing Husky defenders left and right like rag dolls. And hey, it's going to be harder for him to do that in the NFL. There's no denying that. But Joshua Garnett has the mental mindset of wanting to dominate his opponent, and that's half the game in the offensive line. It's physicality, it's mental, being smart, knowing the snap count, and the cerebral side mixed with the physicality. Those are great intangibles to have.
That was Sean's question. Sean, we appreciate you tuning in and for the question as well. Got another question about from Mark, wants to know what number Josh Garnett's wearing. That's 65. Moving to Steven's
65
question.
in your program, number 1 in your heart.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
If you're from Stanford.
Just don't tell anyone else on the roster that. They're all number 1 in our hearts. They're all tied for first.
Yeah.
Who's looking good at the tight end position?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think, again, early on that one, but, you know, Garrett Selleck, very reliable player, has the pedigree of his older brother, played with Chip with the Eagles, so there is some familiarity with the Selleck household. Also, Vance McDonald's has been impressive. A guy that came on strong, has a great rapport with Blaine Gabbert, so you see a lot of 2 to 89 in practice so far, and that is a good look where 89 88 have been reliable in the underneath routes so far, so I think those two are in the mix, and Blake Bell as well has gone down the field. He might be your deeper threat of those 3.
Garrett wants to know, you think Bethea, Jaquiski Tartt, and Eric Reed will be on the field at the same time in some sub packages? I think the answer to that is very real, yes.
Oh, without a doubt. And Jim O'Neill is not stubborn where I only play 2 safeties, I only play 2 corners, 2 outside linebackers down the list. He's going to mix and match and be exotic. You look at his pedigree in the NFL, he comes from the Rex Ryan coaching tree. And what is Rex Ryan known for? It's being exotic. It's doing different things, and it's trying to confuse the opposing quarterback. So the fact that he has Ronald Blair, Tank Carradine, Jaquiski Tartt, guys who aren't necessarily starters right now, he's going to find the best way to get them going.
We've got to pivot over here to our left as practice is getting going here. Special teams period that is closed to cameras. We're going to transition this way. Obviously, we promise we'll get you right back once individual periods start. Again, bringing you back here, 49ers Live from the historic Kezar Stadium, the original home of the San Francisco 49ers. This is 49ers Live, and we appreciate you, as always, tuning in. I'm Joe Finn. He's Taylor Price. For those of you who've been asking questions, got them all right here. Keep them coming. We want you to be the part of the show. Drive the conversation. Eventually, once we turn the camera back around, we'll go position group to position group. And again, Taylor, a great turnout on a beautiful day in San Francisco.
It's great, and you're getting a sense for what a Chip Kelly's practice is all about. You know, it's speed, it's tempo, there's music, there's a little bit of a robot voice that comes in and tells us what period we're in. These are all the things that we're seeing on a day-to-day basis. You like the robot voice. Now the fans get a chance to get a feeling for what these 49ers are doing under Chip Kelly. How are things different under him? How much speed and pace do they actually practice with? And it's been fun to watch because every single day we're learning more about these players and the way they compete and the way they bounce back, and they work hard, especially they want to write the 2015 season. And I think the fans that are out here today and watching at home, you're going to get a sense of, hey, these players are working hard. They want this really bad.
Jarrett wants to know how Dante Johnson's doing, and again, we talk about a crowded cornerbacks room. He's a guy who's been here and had a great season last year. I remember that Falcons game, really sealing the win with a pass breakup against one of the best receivers in the league, in Julio Jones. And he had a nick at the leg injury at the end of the offseason program, but he's back healthy right now and has been playing well.
The best way to categorize Dante Johnson is him being a primetime player. You know, you put the lights on 36, you put him up against Megatron, or you need a blocked field goal to get the game going in overtime against the Rams. He's going to make those type of plays for you. So yes, practices are long, monotonous, a lot of plays going on, and there's not every single time where he's making interceptions and things like that, but he'll rise to the occasion. You put him out on the field, and 36 is going to compete, play hard, also bring special teams versatility as a gunner and as an outside perimeter player as well.
We talked about Phil Dawson as a guy who's one who just shows up to work, business-like approach, and gets it done. Dante Johnson, very similar, not a very outspoken guy who really keeps to himself, but he said, that competitiveness is inside of him.
Yeah, and I think that nature might hurt him in some respects because he's not chest pumping or thumping, and he's not a look at me type of player. But you know what? At the end of the day, it's a results business, and we've seen it in recent practices. The pass breakup at the end of the goal line to Kaepernick to Kajus. There are moments in practice where 36 is making plays, and so again, it all comes down to these preseason games. There's no hiding that, and he's going to get some opportunities as well. These young cornerbacks, and the best film, the best body of work is going to make the difference when you're evaluating the roster.
Jarrett, thanks so much for your question. Israel wants to know who's going to get touches outside of Carlos Hyde. Obviously, we know El Guapo is numero uno in that running back group, and obviously he had a great practice yesterday. But behind him, we've got a mix of veterans, we've got a mix of some young guys, and we start with Shaun Draughn.
Shaun Draughn is a story that everyone can really root for. This guy was out of football, bounced around team to team. You interviewed him. He was looking into real estate, trying to provide for his family. And what does he do? He finds a home here in San Francisco and really competes at the second half of the season, becomes a reliable option as a third down back, all-around player, can pass pro, can catch the ball in the backfield and run in between the tackles. And so this is a guy you want to root for, a champion if you're a Niner fan, because that's a good story. This is the makeup of the NFL lifestyle. It's not always the first time you get drafted or you become a superstar. There's a lot of players that have to go a second, third, fourth chance to make it. And him and Juwan Harris, again, another guy who had to sell cars just to keep his dream alive. 32 and 24 are players that we should all be excited about in every opportunity they get with the team.
And proven guys who can get it done on Sundays, both with great hands. And Chip Kelly's not shy about using more than one running back. Obviously, we talked about Carlos Hyde's your number one. But last year he had DeMarco Murray, Ryan Matthews, and also Darren Sproles. And so there's going to be a mix of guys. With how fast this offense goes, hopefully moving the chains a lot, there's going to be a lot of touches to go around, and in the passing game especially.
If they don't huddle, which we haven't seen a ton of in camp, you're going to see maybe series by series. Carlos Hyde, as good as he's looked in camp, he doesn't have to do everything. And that's a good thing for this offense. You don't need him to carry the ball 30 times to win games. You can give him 15, 18, and maybe give out 10 to 12 to the other backs.
That gets us to the young guys on the roster. Robert wants to know about Kelvin Taylor. We'll lump Mike Davis into that question as well. Both of those guys splitting reps really with the second and third teams, but both have had their moments.
Yeah, we talked about this on the live show last night. Kelvin Taylor, Jeff Driscoll working well together with some of those third team reps. They play together at Florida, so that connection is there. The feel of 6 to 23, he knows where he's going to be on some of those routes. It looks pretty impressive, and I would assume that's going to happen continuously through the preseason. Against the Texans, you'll see those guys working well in the second half of those games.
It just goes back to, one, how difficult it is to make a roster in the NFL, and then two, how important special teams is. In the period going on behind us, guys starting to get loose, but the special teams period going on, who can make the most impact on special teams? Because what they say, positions or spots on the roster, 46 through 53, largely decided by who can contribute on special teams.
Yeah, I'll throw a name out for fans in the Bay Area that know all about him. Bryce Treggs from Cal it doesn't look like an undrafted player. It looks like he's got the physical size for a slot wide receiver, can do some things in the return game. You want to talk about someone who to watch in the second half of some of these preseason games. Number one is definitely one to watch because of his ability to get open in kicks, spring a big play, and also working well as a slot receiver.
Ben's watching right now from Caldwell, Idaho. Shout out to all you guys in Caldwell, Idaho, all the faithful out there, the Potato State.
Yeah.
Is that what it's called, the Potato State?
It is.
It is.
That's good knowledge.
Let us know where you're watching from. Obviously, you're on 49ers Live on the official mobile app of the
worldwide.
team. Or on 49ers.com on Facebook Live where you're tuning in. We got a guest here. Matt Barrow, come in here.
Join
the only legendary. Come right here in the middle, man.
Bring it in tight, nice and tight,
and tight. Matt, have you been to Kezar Stadium before? What's it like for you coming out here and seeing practice this way?
I have been. The 49ers did a similar event in 2004, but that was 12 years ago. It's a little surprising to do the math and realize that was so long ago. That was during Dennis Erickson's second year here. But I think it's awesome. I mean, I just walked through the tunnel that these guys walked through to get to the field today, which is the same tunnel that the teams of the 1950s and 60s would have used too. Old school is the only way to describe it. It's a very, very different than the.
Trent Brown must have had to duck in that because there's no way at parts of that tunnel that thing's 6'10".
It looks like, you go to some of these old cities like Paris and London. It looks like the crypts that are underneath the cities. I mean, that's how old we're talking about here. It's a very cramped quarters that they had to deal with.
Matt, we're talking a lot about rookies right now, getting a lot of questions in. What are a couple of the guys on the roster, the first-year guys, drafted or undrafted, that have stuck out to you?
Well, both of the DBs have stuck out. In the third round, they took Will Redmond. We didn't see very much of him at all in the spring because he was dealing with the knee injury. He's looked really good in the nickel. He's still not going through a full practice, but as Jim Harbaugh used to say, the arrow's up on him. And then Rashard Robinson, and 1 round later, he's playing on the outside. He looks really good too. Just about all of those draft picks have jumped out in a positive way early on. You're not going to know, obviously, if this is a good draft class for a couple of years, but I will say that the early reviews, when you're going from DeForest Buckner to Joshua Garnett to the 2 cornerbacks to Aaron Burbridge and Kelvin Taylor, the early reviews are very positive on each of these guys.
We were talking about it earlier, Taylor and me. I'm banging that Ronald Blair drum. I love what I've seen from him so far, but throw it back to you again with the rookies and who stood out to you.
Yeah, I look at Prince Charles Awara as well. These last few practices, we're ending in with him knocking away passes. So he wants to get in the mix. We've talked about 4.3 speed, and that helps Keith Reeser get on the field. Prince Charles has that unique speed that closes on balls down the field. So that's something to watch as well. The question I wanted to ask you, Matt, was Chip Kelly just spoke before practice, and we're over here flapping our gums, entertaining the fans at home. But any takeaways from Chip and any lead stories for the Sacramento Bee today?
Well, I don't know if this is the lead story. This is a common story or a routine question that he gets, and it's about the quarterbacks. Who's going to start? What's his decision process like? As we may have expected, Chip today said that both of those quarterbacks, Blaine Gabbert, Colin Kaepernick, will get first-team reps in the preseason. So, we probably saw that coming just from the way that snaps are divided in practice. He said that he would make decisions on who starts, how much people play after the Texans practice on Friday. So probably Saturday morning when the coaches get back together, they look at all the tape from the Texans joint practice on Friday. That's when those decisions start to get made on who starts the game, how many snaps a starter will get, when a down the line guy like Demetrius Cherry comes in and plays on the defensive line. That sort of stuff gets figured out on Saturday.
Thank you for name dropping an ASU player. I appreciate that. Yeah, I like that. So coin flip at quarterback so far, but hey, maybe they alternate series. Maybe they work with both the first team offensive line and second team offensive line. So many things that could happen. That's interesting to hear.
Let's transition back over as we step out of frame. We got practice going on behind us, individual drills. Matt Barrows of the Sacramento Bee is with us as we got the defensive lineman here front and center with Jerry Azzanaro. Matt, I want to know, what's your storyline that you're following in training camp and into the season? I'm taking the quarterbacks out of the picture. That's the low-hanging fruit. But what else are you looking at that you say, I'm either rooting for this guy, I'm curious who's going to win this job, or otherwise?
Well, I mean, we're just talking about Demetrius Cherry on the defensive line. That defensive line is bigger than I've ever seen it since I started covering the team, and that's been since 2003. Demetrius Cherry is another 6'6", 300-pound defensive lineman. I mean, I'm not sure he makes the 53-man roster, and I'm not sure if he, is on the roster during the season. But my point is that, he's a guy who's far down this roster, who's got the size that you want to have at defensive line, and it goes on and on and on. Darren Lake, another huge rookie defensive lineman. That's just a common theme for this team. I think that's a really deep group. I think there's some young guys for Jerry Azzinaro to develop over the years.
There's a pedigree there. Mike Purcell, Ian Williams, Tony Girardetti, all undrafted D linemen who've made their way on the 53.
You're looking at some of the pass rushers coming through. Now the safeties coming in, working on their pass rushing. We've seen that a little bit. Guys coming off the edge, blitzing, and getting to the quarterback. As look at Jerry Azzinaro. He's working with everybody right now. Not just defensive linemen. That last little round was with the linebackers. Now with all the DBs, as they're working on getting to the quarterback and getting to that ball.
Yeah, Marcus Cromartie and Eric Reed almost had a little car crash there. We gotta alternate here in this drill. The fun thing, too, is seeing Jim O'Neill's group alternate different stations. Historically, we haven't seen cornerbacks work on the sled or do pass rushing drills, and I think that speaks to the fundamentals that this coaching staff wants to impart on their players.
Yeah, and I think it speaks to what we might be seeing from this defense as well. Doherty even talk about Eric Reed playing more along the line of scrimmage than he used to. I think we can expect that these guys are going to be blitzing and trying to get the quarterback and dislodge the ball from the quarterback more so in the past, and that's exactly what this drill is meant to do.
We haven't touched at all on Eli Harold. I think he's another guy who you're hoping to see a big jump from year one to year two. And so when we talked about how Jim O'Neill's not stubborn in terms of we have to have this personnel on the field at all times, that's what they mentioned when filling in for Aaron Lynch. Obviously, he's going to be out the first 4 games of the season. So who fills that void? Is it an outside linebacker? Do they kind of mix up with different sub packages in terms of how they make up for that production and the talent, obviously, that you're missing with Aaron Lynch? What have you seen so far, Matt, from Eli Harold?
Well, I mean, you've seen exactly what you want to see from a guy who's going from rookie year to second year. He's physically bigger, first of all. He's taken a bigger leadership role. He's a guy that expects to be out there with the starters in those first 4 games. I think he's looked good. I think Tank Carradine's looked good. He had a very nice practice yesterday, making a couple of plays in the backfield and just learning that position better, being somebody that they can count on. Chip Kelly was talking about holding the edge, how important that is for those outside linebackers. We sometimes, I think, get a little bit too preoccupied with pass rush and how many sacks. The first thing they have to be able to do is to stop the run and to keep running plays from going outside. And I think both of those guys, big, strong guys, have been doing a good job at that.
We'll take it off the field with Eli. You talk about a likable player, just a good energy, good spirit. Those are the type of people you enjoy interviewing, you enjoy speaking with, win or loss, because they have a good outlook on life. And we've talked about Eli in the past, the things he's had to overcome in his personal life with the passing of his mother, 3rd-round draft pick from Virginia, not necessarily the most talked about prospect. People thought he could have been a first-round player, but the fact that he's committed to playing, putting all that weight in the offseason, he really loves the game, and he's a guy that definitely fans should be excited about.
Sticking with the linebackers, see 53, Navarro Bowman, fresh off a new 4-year contract. Well-deserved. He talked about how he wanted to set the tone in terms of, he takes a discount and let other guys get theirs, but never considered holding out. He wanted to set an example for the rest of the team, and then, it paid off for him. He had a great year last year, led the NFL in tackles, was all-pro, and says he feels so much better this year. I think for a new coaching staff, send this one to you, Matt, how valuable is it for them to have a guy that's the undisputed leader, what Jim O'Neill put it, that follow me or else kind of mindset to help ease their transition in the first year with a new team?
Yeah, and I don't think it's just Bowman. It's Bowman, it's Antoine Bethea, it's Eric Reed. On offense, it's Torrey Smith, it's Joe Staley. I think that Chip Kelly was very fortunate to come into a situation where it was mostly a young team, and a young team is going to, follow a new head coach pretty seamlessly, but also they had good leadership in all the right spots, and that set a tone for the rest of the guys. And you see that. I mean, you see it in what they say about this offense and defense, and you see it in the attitude and the energy that these early Chip Kelly practices have.
Let's transition over to your left, Mr. Nate Steele, our producer in charge here. We got the DBs in front of us huddling up before they get going here at Kezar Stadium. This is 49ers Live, bringing you training camp practice from Kezar Stadium, the original home of the San Francisco 49ers. They're expecting 8,000 fans on hand today for what's a really fun day. Got food trucks out here, the music's playing, and getting to see their team really in training camp. The only open practice of the summer this August. Just coming up here on the preseason game on Sunday, man, it's really getting going. I think probably a nice way to break up the dog days of training camp.
Yeah, I think so. I don't think this is going to be a full practice by any stretch. They're not in full pads. So I don't want to call it a day off. They're definitely going to be out here practicing. But one field, I don't see any blocking sleds. So this is an easier day of the week for them. And that's probably a good thing because they're going to have a big day on Friday with the Texans coming into Santa Clara, and then a day off before the preseason opener on Sunday.
I see Charles Haley out here again. I wonder if he's getting the coaching designation. He's been out here the last few days after the Eddie DeBarlo enshrinement Hall of Fame. That's a really cool look to see Charles Haley imparting his wisdom to the edge rushers on this team. He's a Virginia legend, so to speak. And Eli Harold talked about that, how cool it was for him to get those extra teaching tips in those teaching periods of practice. Your thoughts on Charles Haley being out here and what that means for this young group of pass rushers?
Yeah, again, it's another voice to listen to. I thought it was interesting. I watched him all yesterday. I was wondering whether he would kind of gravitate towards the outside linebackers or the defensive line. He stuck with the defensive line the whole time, and that's who he's with right now. So that shows you what Charles Haley saw himself as when he was an NFL player. He wasn't one of these tweener types. He was very much a defensive lineman.
Yes, that's right. Hand in the dirt, Charles Haley. Very cool to see him reconnect with the 49ers in recent years after going in the Hall of Fame. It's a good look.
He was there on Sunday. That's a short turnaround from being in Canton. He was at Eddie DeBartolo's Hall of Fame enshrinement ceremony Saturday night. That's a quick turnaround. That's some dedication to hustle back and make sure you're at practice on Sunday. Matt Barrows, any final thoughts? I know you got a job to do, a grade A coverage as always for the Sacramento Bee. Kind of final thoughts as you're out here observing into the second week of training camp.
I'm just excited to see some of these young guys that we've been talking about on Sunday. In a game situation. We talked about Eli Harold. The list goes on and on. Jimmy Ward is in a new spot. He's going to be interesting to watch. I think the defense overall, this is the preseason, of course, so you're not going to see a lot of wrinkles and a lot of crazy blitz packages. But what the coaches use these games for is, how does this guy look going one-on-one against a blocker? How does he look trying to defend the quarterback? So I think that's what fans should probably be watching too. Maybe not so much the final score, but how some of these individual matchups go on Sunday.
Matt, thanks for your time, man. I appreciate it.
Breaking it down. We love it.
Matt Barrows, friend of the program. He's been on twice this week now. Gonna send him some flowers or something as a thank you. We appreciate the knowledge. We trade Matt Barrows for our commander-in-chief, Mr. Rob Alberino, Vice President of 49ers Studios and Executive Producer out here. Rob, you're making it happen today. How exciting is it for you? You've been with this team 4 years now, and you get to be at Kezar Stadium, live practice in front of the faithful.
First of all, you guys have the easiest job on the crew.
We're coasting.
We got 40 people out here running, moving cameras, doing amazing things. And if they could only see you, which they can't because they're looking in live at practice. By the way, I was checking out Facebook. It's rolling. You're in shorts. You're getting some sun. I mean, seriously, are you guys getting paid today?
I hope so.
Working on our base 10 as well.
All right, what was the question again? How excited are we to be out here? Unbelievably excited. I was speaking with Al Guido, our president, speaking with the people behind it. Darcy Malone is the gal on our crew who really put this together for us, and it's been unbelievable. We've been here since about maybe 7 this morning and really got to see this thing kind of come together, and it was really, really cool. At one point, the lines were lined up between the beautiful arch at Kezar Stadium, and people weren't upset to be in line. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, it was a really cool piece. It was lines of just red and gold ready to come in, and when they opened the gates, we had some of our cameras there, and people were smiling. They were pumped. It was a really neat thing. It's almost like a neighborhood carnival, except the 49ers are here.
Rob, I know 2 things about you. You're a historian and you love you some nostalgia.
I do.
And being here where it all started, the original home,
I'm smelling
70th anniversary. No trivia. Not going to put you on the spot. But do you get that feeling here? You know, obviously you've studied so much. You've read the books. You've been through our museum at the stadium. But getting to be here on site and see football played at Kezar Stadium, where the $1 million backfield played, all those legends that laid the foundation, the groundwork for this organization. To go on and win 5 Super Bowls and become what it is today. Now the big structure. Obviously we have incredible Levi's Stadium, but really humble beginnings.
Butterflies. When I walked in here this morning, butterflies. It was really empty. The sun was kind of coming up, and we walked through the tunnels. We walked through the old locker room. We walked through the areas. We saw literally the chalkboard where they were drawing up plays for the $1 million backfield. I could hear John Brody's voice in the back screaming at guys to get ready to go. It's really a cool thing, and I think one of the coolest things, to be super honest, is when I came here, as you mentioned, 4 years ago. I had the opportunity to not only be a part of a historic team, but I also had to be a part of a team that in current generations, in the 80s, 90s, even the end of the 2000s, and into the 2011, 12, and 13 that were, profoundly good teams. So it's not like we were really good back then, or we were really good in the 80s. There's been times, and I feel like obviously we're going to be headed back towards there, but to be here sort of where it started, and sort of gritty and old and dirty, and there's like light bulbs with no cages around them, it's a really cool piece to be. Actually, another guy who was with me along my journey just kind of saddled up to us, Bob Lang, a Philadelphian, much like myself. He saddled up, rocking a full camp beard, which again people can't see. Bobby, can I take over the interview for a second?
You're all over.
We're live, Bobby. We're live. How exciting is it for you? Bob is our Vice President of Communications. Basically, that's a glorified way of saying he handles all PR for the team, and he's the man. This is 17 NFL seasons. 17 NFL seasons.
Yeah.
What's it like for the team to be here?
I think it was great, just being on the team buses as we came through the city, police escort, an ocean of red and gold as we came up to Kezar, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, we pull up in front of the Kezar Pavilion, and across the street from the Kezar Pub. I mean, what a great way to spend a morning with your family. Come up here. We're hoping to do this more often,
I love it, and they were asking me about sort of the history and the ghosts that are here, and we've actually done a couple of shoots here, and it's been amazing. I know that people are like, can we really talk about practice? There's guys practicing on the field.
We did plenty of that. It's
listen,
okay.
As the boss, I'll give you the mic back in a second,
Exactly.
but I got to tell you, as a historian, I just love it. I love the feeling of what's happened here, and even seeing the players finally get to practice in front of the fans out here. It's a whole new feel for them, I think, a whole new feel.
I looked it up last night before we were heading up here today. I wanted to find out a couple nuggets that I might not have known about Kezar. 25 years the 49ers played here, from 1946 to 1970, before they moved down south to Candlestick. 8 of our Hall of Famers played here. I mean, we've got a ton of Hall of Famers, Pro Football Hall of Famers, and just to know that 8 of those guys played on this field in this area in the middle of San Francisco, I mean, that's pretty cool for our guys. We've got a young team, so I think for those guys to appreciate that this is where the 49ers began. This is where the legendary names played every Sunday. It's pretty cool.
I'm going to best Bob with one piece of trivia, and then Bob, you must have other live hits that you have to go on. It's undoubted, right?
I am in high demand today.
He's in the media car wash right now.
So here's my favorite stat. Bob St. Clair, who we interviewed his entire family here, played his entire high school, college, and pro career here, and that is an unbelievable feat, right? An amazing feat. So, Bobby, I'm going to let you go.
True San Franciscan. And before I leave, I'm going to throw a shout out to the city of San Francisco for allowing us to come up here and do this today. I'll tell you what, the facility's great. The track here. If you're a high school kid and you have an opportunity to play a game at Kezar Stadium, you got a pretty cool environment to do that.
Bobby Lang, ladies and gentlemen. Taylor, I'm going to throw it back to you. Thanks for having me on, and I'm sure practice will continue. I'm going to give the mic back to my man, Joe Fan. Listen, don't work too hard, guys, okay?
We're trying. We're making it look easy over here.
We won't. We promise you that.
There's a nice moment there. The senior PGA Tour just rolled through, and the practice. We're in the final period. Yeah, we're still in the final period of practice that we're able to show you. So it's been an exciting day. A lot of information, a lot of chances for you to see your favorite players as we get back on camera over here and finish up practice. it's exciting to watch this thing happen and for all the fans. And it's been a great day so far. Plenty more things to come. Friday we got the joint practices with the Houston Texans. Sunday 4 o'clock at Levi's Stadium. Make sure you come out and watch the team play. It's an exciting era with Chip Kelly and what he's doing with this team, and I think all the fans are going to be excited to see this product on the field.
Just a couple of minutes left here of live practice before we say goodbye here on 49ers Live at the historic Kezar Stadium. Got one last question. We appreciate everyone who's been a part of the show. But how is the offensive line looking? And Taylor, I think it's been a progression, as it always is with the offensive line. Once you put pads on, you get your bearings for those first couple of days. And we saw yesterday, especially with Carlos Hyde, a couple of big holes for him to run through.
Yeah, and I think, competition brings out the best in everyone. And looking no further than 61, Andrew Tiller, you draft a first-round guard with Joshua Garnett, and Andrew Tiller's not just laying down and giving up that spot. And the same for Trent Brown, who was a 7th-round draft pick and is starting right now at right tackle. Anthony Davis back on the roster. So Garnett and Davis are pushing for playing time, and that just brings out the best from the whole group. That's an exciting thing for this offensive line, as they have competition and they have multiple options to play as a five-man group.
Taylor, again, as we close things out here, you got to imagine these players are just loving it being in front of thousands of fans. It's a nice, like we talked about, change of pace from those dog days of training camp that continue to grind on.
Yeah, it's a great thing to connect San Francisco to the 49ers like this. Training camp is out there where it's kind of hunkered down, but to have all the fans out here to get a fan fest and have that experience with these players and to learn about some of the young guys, the Rashard Robinsons, the Jaquaski Tarts, the Aaron Burbridges, some of these guys that we're watching at practice every single day, to get them on the field in front of the fans, it's a great thing.
And you see the guys with the same faces you've seen for so long, the Staples, the Joe Staley's. Shout out to him. 10 years. And that's at a crucial position in the game to hold down the left tackle spot at a high level. You talk about competition every single year. They're looking for guys to take his spot. But once again, it's always Joe Staley. That guy's a consummate professional and still very much so at the top of his game.
Present day Bob St. Clair, if you will, playing at Bob St. Clair Field. Can I tell more Bob St. Clair stories real quick?
Yeah.
So Bob St. Clair, his feat was jumping over the offensive line and blocking kicks. And he used to block so many kicks because he was, 6'5", 6'7". He's a big dude. He used to have the ball come up and hit him in the mouth and knock his teeth out. And he would play games where he'd put Novocaine in his mouth and keep playing.
Same.
So this guy was tough, hard as nails. Used to eat raw steak, go around the parking lots as he got older, was a Hall of Famer. He would eat raw meat, and that was some of the things he was known for. So there's a pedigree of great offensive linemen with the 49ers, with Bob St. Clair, Harris Barton, and so on and so forth. So to have Joe Staley be a 10-year member of this club, it's fitting that we're here at Bob St. Clair Field as Joe Staley gets the 10th year while achievement.
We're wrapping things up here on 49ers Live, our special here from the historic Kezar Stadium. We want to send a massive thank you to you viewing, whether it was on Facebook, our app, or on 49ers.com. Obviously, the entire crew, Nick Shabetta, Will Blackwell back in studio at Levi's Stadium, Nate Steele, Trey Dillon, Meg Ryan, Rusty Parker. It's an entire crew that makes this work. Like Rob said, we got the easy job working out here on the base stand, just getting to watch football. Taylor, it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's a great day, and we have to go watch practice. 7-on-7, team periods, a lot of great things that are going to happen on the field. You can go to 49ers.com later in this evening and check out the highlights, all the best plays, and all the great content that we do on a daily basis.
And then catch us tomorrow. 49ers Live is back 4:30 from Levi's Stadium on our normal digs in the Comcast studios. We'll see you there. For Taylor Price, I'm Joe Finn. We appreciate you joining us right here on 49ers Live.